Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 40. 40. I don't know what I was doing, y'all. I think I was excited, but it's 40. Can you believe it? We've made it this far. It's been a year. It has absolutely been a year, and you have been with me this entire time, and I want to say thank you. That's the first thing that I want to say. Um, I had no idea what this was going to look like for me, for us. Hey, Tiffany, had no idea what it's going to look like for me, for us, how I was going to manage the year, what it was going to bring. I think that's, every year when we start the year, we walk. I know, right? Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I didn't know what the year was going to bring. I had no idea at the beginning of the year I was going to actually start sipping tea because, again, I've had the concept for a couple of years. And every single time that I would think to start it, something would be a reason why I didn't. I had real 40 exactly. Um, I change. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is for sure. That is for sure. This year has been a year of a lot of change. But I had no idea. I didn't know what to anticipate. And the strongest thing that I can think about as I kind of reflect on the time and I reflect on the fact that God had planted this in me so long ago, and for a number of years, I just didn't do it for. And again, when we have something that sometimes God gives us, it's not always for right then, right? Sometimes it is for us to sit on it and wait till we are in the right place emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, and sometimes physically. But for me, I just didn't really know how to like what it was going to look like. I didn't really know what I had the concept in my brain, but not really any way of executing it. And then when in February, when I, was disconnected from work, there didn't seem to be enough of a reason for me to keep pushing it off. It seemed like that was the time. And sometimes in a situation that is complicated or stressful, God will give us the kind of the push in that moment, or allow for us to walk in the freedom of, okay, this is our time. This is what is supposed to happen right now. And so, y'all, you've been with me. You've been with me through the times where I couldn't get the sucker to turn on. I had to switch from one to another. I went from IG to, I tried Facebook. That didn't work. I tried Zoom even. We did one Zoom episode. And then now we are, here on YouTube. And even that didn't work for a week. But nevertheless, you have been here with me, and I wholeheartedly appreciate you. Um, I don't know what God will have in store for, what exactly I'm going to be covering on here, but I'm just going to every week ask him what to talk about, and every week come and talk to you all about that. But as you know, it is sipping tea, so we have to do that. That has to be done. Today's mug will be this one. Y'all know it's a oldie but a goodie, not a day over fabulous, because that's what I needed to feel like today. So not a day over fabulous. This was a gift as well. And today we're gonna have a remix of a tea that I've tried before, as well as the honey that I got last week. So the honey that I got last week, where did I put it? It is this one, which is Connemara Finest Honey with Christmas Cinnamon. So I'm going to be using this. Oh, I actually did it right today, y'all, because I'm usually all over the place with that. And then we're going to be using Bigelow's Salted Caramel Black Tea. So we'll see what the world... You on the daggone honey example. That is true. That is true, Tiffany. I did start the year with my lovely crunchy sugar granules, right? That's what I started with. And now we're doing a lot of honey situations. So hey Kathy, how you doing? Welcome in, welcome in. Here for episode 40, girl. Welcome in, welcome in. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about becoming whole, which is loving every part of you as you go through this healing journey. I feel like, that's not always easy. That in itself is not always easy, because we will get to a place that we love parts of us. We love parts of us, but the rest of us were like, I could do without that piece, or that piece is not exactly where I would think that it should be. But he wants us to love all of us throughout the journey. So let me prepare this tea so it can steep. Though I will tell you, this salted caramel gets real dark real quick. So I'm not going to let it steep too long because bitter tea is not my, wow, y'all can see that steam, right? Look at that. So in any event, yeah, I don't like bitter tea, so we're not going to have that. All right. And then I will get on the topic. But how are you all as I prepare this? How's everybody doing? What's going on? How's the weather where you are? Do you have any plans for the weekend? We're nearing the end of the year. So what y'all doing? What are y'all doing? And I will also say that when I take this tea bag out, so again, this is the salted caramel from Bigelow. When I take this tea bag out, the scent is like overpowering. But it's interesting because, you know, it says salted caramel, and I smell, to me, it smells more like a molasses. It doesn't really smell like caramelly. So in any event, we're going to put that in, and it's going to steep. It's already getting like brown. I literally just let it hit the water. 44 degrees. Keep it going. Keep it going. You're okay? Well, I'm hoping that, you know, sometimes okay is good, right? Sometimes that's all we got in that moment. And I get that. But I'm hoping, you know, that the weekend provides something, and it's better than okay, right? It's good. I think a lot of us, myself included, get into a space where we're like, you know what? It's okay. It's just okay. And that's what it's going to be. And I'm all right with that. But we also should deserve to be like, and have happy moments, right? It doesn't have to just be barely, you know, barely making it, barely all right. And I'm not saying you meant that, because you could have meant like, Stacy, when me saying okay, it means I'm okay. Like I'm good. It just prompted that because I've been, you know, talking to a variety of people, and sometimes when they say okay, it really means that they're not. So I just want to bring that in. All right, tea is getting a little bit darker. Do a little bit of a zhuzh here. I wish you guys could see how dark this tea got immediately. And again, I'm going to be putting. See, I did it so well the first time. I'm going to be putting this, the Connemara Christmas cinnamon. And I'm curious, why they call it Christmas cinnamon? Just because Christmas sells? Or is there like... Okay, so the first time I smelled this, y'all, it smelled okay. Now I'm smelling it. This smells so good. But maybe you guys just don't want to sit here and watch me sniffing honey, because that's weird. So let me put some honey in. And by some honey, I mean a lot, y'all. Tiffany, don't start with me. Don't start with me, Tiffany. I'm putting some in there. All right. I closed it, and there's still some honey in the jar, so I didn't put it all in there. I'm fantastic. Every day is a better day. Amen. In Christ Jesus our Lord. Having car trouble. It's just one problem after another, and I'm just over it. Happy to see and hear you again, though. Well, Kathy, I'm sorry to hear that. And it is very challenging when we have like repeated things happening. Believe me, I have been there where it kind of like, it's like, okay, God, what's the messaging right here? Because it does feel exhausting. But what I will say is keep on listening to God, keep on talking to God, keep on having conversation with him. That is the most important thing to help you manage when there are stressful times, when there are hard times, especially when they seem to like just be adding up or piling up on top of each other. The only thing that has allowed for me to get through some of the hard things that I've managed is me talking to God. And I don't try to talk to him any specific way. I literally talk to him like I'm talking to y'all. And sometimes not even as nice. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I'm like, for real? That's what we're doing, God? That's what we're doing? Like, what's going on? I'm trying to do all the things, right? I'm trying to do all the things. And then also sometimes we have to recognize there are moments where we have these collective things, these additional or added things that happen in our lives. And those are times where God is trying to get our attention. And if we're not paying attention, then he's going to keep just doing what he does to gain our attention. So only you would know. I have no idea what your business is, right? But That's what I've found for myself. For myself, it's kind of one of those moments where he's like, "Are you gonna listen to me or not? Like, what are we doing here?" And I'm like, "Okay, I hear you already." I told y'all that's how I talk to God. Y'all talk to him how you want to talk to him, but yeah, that's how we chit chat. That's what I do too. Between October and December, they consume more cinnamon. Okay, look at you being the bee whisperer. Yeah, no, but I do think that that's probably why they call it Christmas. But I mean, again, people love anything labeled Christmas, y'all. Let's be honest. All right, I'm stirring that in there because one of the other things that I noticed is, and y'all, for y'all honey users, I am curious about this before I get started. I add the honey in and I let it sit there and soak in, and then I stir it in. But sometimes it doesn't feel like it hits all of the liquid. Like sometimes I feel like even though it's not stuck, because I checked to see if it's stuck on the bottom and it's not, but maybe it's because I'm just used to like how sugar adds sweetness. Let me know. Let me know, because I'm like, what's going on? Why is this not as sweet as I want it to be? All right. So in any event, like I told you all, the topic for today is becoming whole, because y'all, we've been through 40 episodes and it's important for us to look at our healing journey, and hopefully all of you have taken some measure of healing journey for yourselves. Everybody's is going to look different. The time you might invest might be different. What God asks of you is absolutely going to be different. It's going to be tailored to you. But I think it's important that we, and I talked about this a bit yesterday, last week, in that abbreviated, why in the world can I not talk today? The abbreviated version of sipping tea is I was mentioning that it's important for us to have these kind of checkpoints where we are looking at what it is that God is doing in a season. Your addiction to feeling gradually at the bottom. I'm just wondering, because it sometimes, and I think obviously it depends on the tea too. Sometimes it does taste sweet, and then there are other times it doesn't taste sweet at all to me. I'm like, did I put enough in here? Like, how much am I supposed to put in this sucker? So that's why I was asking y'all honey users. All right. So the first thing I will say as far as thinking about this topic is that when you're healing, it is really sometimes challenging to look at your whole self. A lot of times I will say it's challenging because when we think about the past versions of ourselves or the past ways that we showed up or didn't show up for someone, that makes us kind of look at ourselves as not progressing, as not positive. Like we look at ourselves in a non-positive way. We definitely do not give ourselves grace or show up for ourselves in that way. And I think that's really, really important. 1 tablespoon is enough. By tablespoon, you mean like 1 tablespoon. Girl, y'all, pray for me then. Because some of these teas taste bitter, and I'm like, I'm working on it, Tiffany. I switched over to honey. Give me some grace, right? Didn't we just talk about that? one tablespoon is enough. You use a teaspoon. Well, good for you, ma'am. Good for you. Pray for me. Pray for me. But I think that, thank you. I thank you for giving me grace. For giving me grace. So sometimes we focus so much on where we're going, and we commit to this healing journey. And I think the hardest part about a healing journey is, for most of us, when we start something, like if we start a project or if we start a book, we know that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? You start reading the book, you get into it, and now it starts getting really good and you're flipping through it, and then you get to the end, and sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, that was so good. Or you're waiting for the next book because maybe it's a series, or you feel disappointed because it's over and now you don't, what happened to my characters, right? So you have that. When you're on a healing journey, what can make it difficult is that there's really not a specific end date, because as you heal in one area of your life, what it may do is uncover another area that you have to address, another situation, or another part of your past that you haven't given enough attention to, but you're seeing it now show up in your present, right? And so that can make it really challenging. That can make it very, very difficult. What I will say is that, because we're focusing on this end piece, we're not really thinking about the journey. We're not really enjoying the journey. We're not really walking through thinking about all the things we've overcome, and really like looking at the fact that the way we were when we started this thing is not where we're at right now, and it's 100% not where we're going to be in the future. And you can see that because the fact that you've already made up some ground, you've already healed in certain areas, you've already addressed certain areas, or even if you haven't healed in the areas, you now have an awareness that you didn't have walking in. That is huge. That is helpful. And for me, it's been one of the areas this week in particular, y'all. I really feel like, and I was trying to express it before, and it made it a little bit challenging to express in a way that was understandable. But there have been like a couple of different podcasts that I've listened to, a couple of different live sessions, hosting sessions that I've been in, or panels that I've been a part of. And in that time, what it has felt like for me is God telling me, Stacey, I see you, right? I see you. I see your work. I see you're changing. I see your awareness of yourself. I see your awareness of others. And for me, y'all, when I say that so much has mentally changed, um, even like even the fact that like perfect example this week, when you separate from someone, right, in a relationship, and you're moving forward, you're like in a space of, okay, this relationship didn't last, didn't work, whatever, right? You're moving forward, and God literally challenges you in an area where you don't want to be challenged. I was like, I'm not trying to do that. But because you're in a space that you want things to move forward, and you're listening to God and you're obeying God, right? You're in that space. What will happen is you'll do what God is asking, even if it hurts, even if it's painful, right? I just noticed this is like that. Sorry, y'all. You'll do this even if it's painful, even if it's annoying, even if it's like stretching you to a place you don't want to be stretched in that moment, in that time. But the thing is, you're like, for you, it's more important to be obedient than it is how you feel in that time, right? So, I have been avoiding listening to, for a whole host of reasons, been avoiding listening to Jonathan McReynolds music. And I like Jonathan McReynolds. The man ain't done nothing to me, right? But listening to songs from him were triggering me, because they were connected to this person, right? And so when you are in a space where you're able to, and God had me, yeah, this is the funny thing how God works, right? Because he knows that I'm going to help other people. When other people are going through, that's how I show up, right? I want to make sure that they're good. It's easier for me, and I think for most people, to deal with what other people are managing instead of like making it focused on you. So instead of just coming to me directly, what he did was is he had this woman that was going through some things and said, "Hey, I want you to tell her to listen to this song." And I felt it like hardcore in my spirit. Y'all, it was a Jonathan McReynolds song. I wasn't trying to, like, I didn't want nothing to do with the man, right? But I was obedient, and I literally love you too. I went and I gave this woman the song. I told her that God told me to tell you to listen to "I Will Make Room for You," right? So I told her, and the woman's live session that I was on, y'all, before I could even take the earbud out of my ear, this woman was already playing the song, right? And I told y'all I've been avoiding it, right? It triggered me, so I did not want to hear his music. I was willing to tell the woman to listen to it, but I didn't want to hear it. So before I knew it, the song was playing. Before I knew it, I was like, you know how the tears come out like this in those cartoons? Before I knew it, that was like the measure. The tears were just flying out, right? So I was like, really, God? Like, that's what we're gonna do today? Like, you choosing violence today, Lord? You just had to pow me today. So I was like, okay, I'm listening to the song. I'm just taking it in, right? And as I'm listening to the lyrics, right, which is "I will make room for you." And it's a song where you're singing to God, right? You're telling him, regardless of the things that are going around in my life, regardless of the pain that I might be enduring, regardless of how things look, how I feel, um, what things feel like, I'm going to make room for you because you're God. I mean, of course, I need to make room for you, right? Seems logical, but not everybody does it. And so I was just, listening to the lyrics, I will make room for you. And one of the things that I had asked God for was, God, in the midst of my healing from betrayal, I really want for you to make sure that you do not allow my heart to get hard. Because the reality of it is, even though we go through things and even though people don't necessarily handle our heart with care, it is imperative that we take control over the damage, because that other person is not going to step up and say, Stacy, I'm so sorry. And quite frankly, even if they did, it might be just so, like, the word that came to my head was vapid, but I know that was it's so, like, blah, right, with nothing behind it. And I don't need it from that person. That at the end of the day, I need it from God. I need for God to heal and for him to do what he does, right? So I'm listening to the song, and my heart, I couldn't even, I could not sing the words, y'all. I didn't have it in me, because again, I was just crying kind of hysterically at that point. But it was purifying me at the same time, right? So I know sometimes we, like, don't want to cry, we don't want to show emotion. We're like, what's the point? I'm crying. I've cried and cried and cried for years. Ain't nothing changed. So what's the point of crying now? But there is a cleansing that happens when your heart is not just, when you're not just crying from pain, but you're crying because you're releasing, right? And I was releasing something that I didn't know that I was ready to release, if I'm going to be honest with you. It was more so something that happened outside of my control. And as I was crying and as I was listening to the lyrics of the song, and my heart was singing that, God, I'm going to continue to make room for you, because that is the truth. I have been. It's not like even through heartbreak, I wasn't making room, right? I was still doing that. Um, the funny thing that happened was I literally heard God say to me, because you've asked me to keep your heart from getting hard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make room in your heart for your person, right? For who I have for you. Um, which to me, y'all, was, first of all, if you've never really heard God's voice, or you've never sat in a space where you felt his presence so strongly, um, it was so overwhelming in the most beautiful way. It was overwhelming in the most beautiful way because um, as you're healing, much of it does feel alone. Much of it does feel like, even though you're reaching out to God for it, and even though you're making sure that he's central in it and all that, it can very much feel like, God, you hear me? I don't know if any of you have ever felt like that. Like, God, hello, it's your girl over here. I don't know if you're hearing me. And so for me, that was a very real experience and a very real moment, and I needed that desperately. But what it felt like for me was him saying, I see you. I see you. I haven't forgotten you. I haven't left you alone. I'm still very much here. And it felt like he was giving me a warm hug. Like, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you because I know this is hard for you. And I know that this person hurt you. I know that they did not regard your heart. And I'm sorry that that happened to you. But I've never done that to your heart. I've never, I didn't do that. Because again, sometimes what happens is when something happens to us, we automatically, will blame God for that thing. Right? Like, God, if you cared about me and if you loved me, then XYZ wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't have been a case. You wouldn't have allowed it. And he's like, I can't, because he doesn't control human, like what we do as humans, right? He lets us, he gives us free will. We can or cannot. We can listen or we don't have to, right? And so, because that is the case, because he does give us that free will to move forward and do what it is that we do, there are going to be times where we have hurt, right? That's going to be the nature of it. But when he literally said, because you have been coming to me, because you've been um, dedicated and committed to making room for me in the midst of your pain, in the midst of your confusion, in the midst of your disappointment and frustration, I'm going to make room for that person. And that song was not meant like that. Right? That song was not meant for that. So it just was awesome. It was an awesome thing. So the reason why I want to share that is because, as we're talking about becoming whole, there are parts of us. The reason why that's important is that we love each version of ourselves that got us to where we are now, right? Each version of ourselves. Y'all, this lighting is something else today. Each version of ourselves. Okay. So there are three main things that I want to talk about as we have this discussion. And again, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can feel free to put it in the chat. So there are three main parts of the discussion, which are acknowledging your past you. So let's start there. When we're going through a healing journey, obviously we're unpacking the first version of ourselves, right? Which is our past. The tricky part, and I've said this to you before, the tricky part of your healing journey is that as you're healing, it is really easy to get stuck or fixated on your past, and that's not the name of the game. Yes, you have to address it. Yes, you have to have you have to have moments where you sit in it for a minute, because you're trying to recall memories, you're trying to recall people that might have been involved, you're trying to unpack what your emotional state was or your mental state, and all those things do take time. So you have to sit in it as far as it requires you to have understanding, right? But what I'm not trying to tell you to do is sit in it to a point where you can't get out of it, right? You're stuck in the emotions of it. All you feel is the emotions, and there's no processing, there's no logical way for you to address anything. That's not helpful for you. And a lot of people do get stuck in that. That can be the challenge, which is why, for me, I'll say Christ in the couch all the time, which is, yes, obviously go to God first, but also say to God, I need somebody that's going to help me unpack this, because a lot of times people say, talk to somebody that or somebody you trust, which is not bad in itself. However, the benefit of going to somebody who is a therapist or somebody who is separate from you is that they have a way of unpacking things without having any lens of who you are, right? They don't know you, so they're not filtering what they're saying to you through a lens of knowing you, knowing your past, knowing your traumas, knowing any of your business, any of your situation, right? So that can be helpful. So when I talk about acknowledging the past you, what I want you to remember is this, and I wrote these things down because I want to make sure that I can articulate them the best way. So every version of you, and this is so important for you to remember, every version of you, even the versions you look back on and you're like, ugh, that was a rough period, or that was a bad time in my life, or I made a bunch of cruddy decisions during that time. Every version of you served a purpose. Every version. Because what you went through and the person you were at that time led you to the person that you are now and the person that you will become in the future, right? So even the one that made mistakes, the one that loved the wrong person or stayed too long with the wrong person or in a toxic opportunity, right? So remember, when I'm talking about growth or relationship, it doesn't necessarily mean romantic. I think some of us always go there, right? We go to the romantic relationship first and we assume that that's what I'm talking about. And that's not the case, right? It 100% can be that, but it also 100% can be that you picked the wrong job or you chose the wrong business partner, right? All of those are relational. So, but again, every version of you served a purpose, even amongst those things. The version of you that was that version of you, so that version of you that maybe made the wrong choices, that maybe stayed in that toxic relationship too long, that joined the wrong company, even though you kind of had some reservations. You were like, I've heard some shady things about this person that I might be working with, I don't know. But that version of you was surviving. And I don't think that we understand that there are parts of us that are not in a oh, I'm in a good place, or I'm doing well for myself. Some of us are in places, especially when we look at our past. There's so much of our past, because we're not in a healing space yet, that we can look now and see that we were just trying to make it. We were just trying to survive. There was no beneficial situations that we might have dealt with, or maybe we had a couple of good things that were positive, right? Or many things that were positive, but it still doesn't negate that we were just trying to live our life, right? That was it. So that version of you was surviving and only did so with the tools that they had. That's another thing. And the reason why that's important is I think what that does is it also gives understanding to um, sometimes the people that were part of our past that didn't treat us with regard, right? What I've started to recognize the older that I get is that people that were in my past that didn't hold me tightly like I might have needed to, or people that didn't treat me with kindness or didn't, hold my heart, as I say often, in regard, are people that only lived life and only addressed me and only could love on me and only could nurture me from a place of the toolkit that they had, right? I think it's really easy. I know it's really easy to hold um, hurt, anger, sometimes hatred, which we shouldn't have that sitting and festering. But it's really easy to hold a place for that in our heart for people that have wronged us, for people that maybe destroyed our confidence in ourselves, for people that you know damaged us in a way that it still sits in us and it's things that we're now trying to heal from. It's really easy to do that. But one of the things that this journey has allowed for me to do is look back on some of those situations that I've been able to unpack with a little bit more perspective and with a bit more grace than I would have before. Um, for those of you who are parents and are watching this, you recognize that there's no manual to be a parent, right? You try your best. You try not to. I mean, you have to raise a whole human and not try to ruin their lives, right? Like let's be honest. And you typically, I mean, most parents that are generally, because there are some people, y'all, that are just not good people. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. They're just not good people, right? There's some people that are monsters, even, right? But the vast majority of people do not walk into, becoming parents with ill intent, even if they're not prepared, even if they're afraid, right? But there is a very real damage that can be done when you're not doing the work, when you're not intentional, and especially if you don't have a true relationship with God. Not like one where you go to church. That doesn't mean you have a relationship with God. It means you visit a place, right? But what I have been able to do is look on people with a bit more grace than I ever could have done before. So what I want you to do is recognize that as you look back on that past version of yourself, maybe the one that you're not the most proud of, right? Maybe the one that makes you like, you know, cringe a little bit. You're like, man, what was I going through that age or stage of my life? I want you to look back on that version of you with a bit more compassion than maybe you've ever done. Give that person compassion and not shame. Dress that person in compassion and grace, but not shame. Because it's easy to do that. Like, man, why did I make that choice? And, I made that choice and now my life is this. And if I had done that, y'all, and I'm going to also tell you this, and I need to share this really quickly. There are going to be people in your life that want to hold you in bondage to your past. That's just what it is. Um, you're learning every day as a parent. I'm sure. I'm learning about myself every day. So I can only imagine you're having to learn somebody beyond yourself outside of your body, right? So I think that it's important that we recognize to not just give other people grace, but we also have to give ourselves grace, um, and not shame, because shame is something that other people try to dress us in, and what it does is it eliminates God's grace for you. God, look, once you go to God and you say, God, man, I was a whole hot mess out in these streets, and you go to him and you repent, he already forgot it. But I'm telling you, people will steady try to bring it up to you. Oh, you've always been this way, or you always have to do this, and you all like they and the thing is, as you try to grow, it becomes painful when people try to hold you as a hostage to things you're trying to overcome, right? But the reality of it is you have to, in your mind, to say, okay, I hear it that they saw this version of me. I hear that they're trying so hard for me not to be able to walk in freedom from what I was or how I showed up, but I can't allow for them being stuck for them to continue to make me stuck, right? Um, if you want to see me as that damaged person, and if you want to consistently try to bring that out of me, because that's the other thing, there'll be people that consistently want to. I don't know if it's that they want to. I think sometimes people just don't know better, right? They will consistently trigger you and try to bring you back to a place that you're asking God to heal you from. So it becomes this constant roller coaster, which is why I also tell people sometimes your healing has to take place separate from some people, because they're not on their healing journey and they don't understand, and or sometimes they don't care that you're healing. Um, what did I write? Unfortunately, the implications of decisions or non-decisions may also have repercussions, and that's also real. That's also real. And like I said, people are going to look at you through the lens of how they met you, how they've experienced you. Um, and sometimes we also have to take ownership for that, right? If, you know, um, as a kid, I'm acting as a kid and the ways that I show up have injured someone, you would hope that they would recognize that I was a child and I didn't have the emotional tools to show up anyway differently. Obviously, a lot of times when you're showing up as a child in a specific way, you're doing so because your environment, something about the environment that you're being raised in, makes you like that, right? If you're a fighter, you may have felt like you always had to defend yourself. That's just what the nature of what the relationship is or the nature of your environment is. So you feel like, okay, in order to move forward or in order to live my life, I have to show up in a protective space, um, or in a protective manner. And not everybody gets that. Instead, they're, oh, you're mouthy or you're belligerent or you're disobedient. And I'm literally in a space that I may be just trying to survive. I'm fighting for my life. Something about the environment is making me uncomfortable, and not everybody is doing that work to recognize the why you show up the way that you do. They're just basing it on how you've shown up. Like, so if you are a person that has always been in fights and stuff, people are like, oh, this person, oh, watch her, that person's always a fighter. But why did they feel like they need? Because you don't come out of the womb ready to fight, y'all. You don't come out like that. Something in your environment instills that feeling that you don't feel safe. So because I don't feel safe, and because you haven't allowed for me to feel safe, and nothing about this I have to show up that way, because every part of your body knows that it needs to defend itself, right? Every single person, well, there's a few people that don't have it, but you have a survival mechanism, right? And that is what is kicking in. You're still learning to ignore them. Yeah, it's tough, y'all. That mixture, as I let the honey sit for longer, is bliss. That is so good. That is so good. All right. So the next thing, pray. Pray and ask God to do the work that's above your pay grade. Stop trying to convince people that you're a different person. Just stop. It's gonna frustrate you. It's gonna aggravate you, because some people are hell bent on keeping you where you were, or where you're currently trying to leave, right? And because they're not invested in their own healing, because they don't think they need to do any healing, because they're just who they are and they're not going to change. They have no intention of changing. It's lazier, but easier for them to make it about you and your behavior and how you're showing up, or any of those things. You're going to frustrate yourself trying to get people to see you differently than you are, period. So what you have to do is take a breath and continue to ask God to do the work in them. But it's really about doing the work in you so that you're not so wounded by it. And I have to say that because I can be easily wounded when people are not allowing for me to progress. Like, it feels like they're determined to see me as one note. And for the longest time, I was like, okay, I'm going to convince these people and they're going to see me. No, no. God is going to convince you to see me as different because he sees me as different. And if you're in alignment with God, then your intention should be not only to see me as different, but to help me be different. Right? That should be your intention, but it's not everybody's intention. And so it is what it is. So pay and ask God to help you, pray and ask God to help you to do his work because, y'all, let me tell you, that's not it. I want you to think about this, and you don't have to share it. I'm going to just take my glasses off because y'all know I can't read with my glasses up close. I just can't do it. But I want you to pray and ask God to do his work because it is above your pay grade. Some fractures that have made by us that have been made by us, because we have fractured people. Every one of us has. But some of the fractures that have been made by us, what I will say is that God has to do the repairs. Right? Again, it's above our pay grade. We can be intentional. We can absolutely apologize, and we should apologize with sincerity. But some of that stuff, God has to handle it. He has to do it. But we also have to remember we have fractured people. Like, that's a real thing. And even if we didn't mean to, we have hurt people. So we have to be willing to accept that when they come to us and say, hey, you hurt me, or the way that you spoke to me injured me. Not everybody's going to. Not everybody's going to apologize. You can't wait for that either. Some of us will be on the other side of glory, and people will have never apologized to us. Okay? So I want you to think about one thing you've learned to forgive yourself for and your past self for. That's important. For me, it was not thinking that I was enough and adopting a transactional mentality to address new people for protection. I was in the no new people, no new friends, no new anything. Like, I was not interested in that because I felt like my heart is very big. I do for people all the time. People don't always do for me. And when I do for people, I feel like they don't appreciate it often. And that's really hard. It's really hard when you go out of your way for people and they don't show up as appreciative, right? Because then it makes you feel some type of way about showing up that way. Now, that's my general manner of who I am regardless. But it hurts when you like do all the things and people get to a point where they expect it from you as opposed to thank you for it. So I had to recognize, one, that Stacey, you're enough, and you don't have to do the most for people for them to be able to see that. And if they only see you or your value or only express value in you because you're doing something for them, then that is the problem. That is a problem. Because you shouldn't have to do anything for someone for them to see, because just as the nature of you being alive, you have value, period. Okay. All right. So the second thing that I want you to talk about is honoring the present you. So that was about acknowledging the past you. Now I want you to honor the present you. So healing is not about perfection. And if you're thinking that that's it, then you need to work on that. I wrote this. So healing is not about perfection. It's really about awareness. So you probably have heard me say you have to be aware of who you are and how you're showing up and what version of you you're giving to people, right? And I wrote, Stacey, Stacey, are you learning about yourself? Because that's the most important thing. As through this whole journey, if I went from February to now, we're in November, almost at the end of the year. If I went from this entire time and I learned nothing about myself, Houston, we have a problem. Right? Because I should be learning something about myself. I should be learning, and I have learned this year, what are my habits? What are some of my triggers? What is my trauma? Areas that I need to grow in. And then things that I don't do right by myself for. Like, so things that I need to do for myself that I don't for a number of reasons, right? Why is that? Why does it show up like that? So I've learned all those things this year, y'all. And I'm sure there's going to be more things that I unpack, but that is a huge blessing because I'm aware in an area that I was not aware. I knew I didn't do things for myself. I think you can kind of tell if you don't, or you do or don't do things for yourself. The thing I do for myself is get my nails done. That's something that I do for myself. But in general, No, I do for others, and it's hard because sometimes as I do for others, people have issue with me doing things for others, or people have, shouldn't you do it this way, or should you do it that way, or maybe you should do this, and I'm just like, so it becomes one of those things that even in me trying to show up for others, sometimes there'll be people that will have, you know, kind of feel like they need to tell you how you're doing it. A perfect example, I do TikTok, as you all know, and I had this woman, and I'm on there because God told me to be on there. Very clear, very pointed, told me to do it, right? So I'm on there because that, and I had a woman come on and told me that I was doing it the wrong way. I should be doing it differently. I should be showing up differently. And I'm just like, ma'am, like, first of all, I don't know you. Um, and it really rubbed me the wrong way. And you have people that are like, oh, you're on TikTok, that's weird, or that's why, and why are you talking to these strangers? And this is my thing, this is why you have to have your own relationship with God, because everybody will have an opinion, everyone, right? And if you're listening to those opinions, then you're out of alignment with God, and that's more serious than caring about how somebody else views you, period, and point blank. Like, I can't say that any more strongly. And the older that I get, the more I'm willing to box out other people's opinions and make sure that I'm focused on what God is telling me. I don't care if they don't like it. I don't care if they don't get it. That does not matter to me. I need to make sure what God is asking me, because I'm asking for things from Him. And if I want these things to come to pass in my life, my priority needs to be Him. Right. And so I need for you to stress that to you all, that you need to make sure that that is the guiding for you. Um, your current self is learning and unlearning and evolving in real time, which is a lot of work. So I will tell you that the healing journey sometimes is mentally tiring, because you're doing so much. It's not like you're physically doing things, though some people, part of their healing journey is like exercising in addition to all these things, right? But for me, I've noted that sometimes I'll be really mentally tired, and then, somebody may say something about, what I'm doing or how I'm doing it, and it like literally grates my nerves on a level that it probably wouldn't if I wasn't actually healing and then sharing my healing, right? And so that's something that I have to be aware of. But imagine this, you're like literally unlearning past trauma or past triggers, right? In the ways that people treated you or disregarded you, right? All those things, you're learning about that. And then you have to unlearn some of the things that we thought were true and they're not, right? Like, that's not the way that you have to talk to somebody because they're younger than you, right? Or that's not the way you need to disregard somebody because you don't want to hear what they have to say, right? So we're unlearning some bad behavior that we might have been taught, because again, people pass down generationally things that they learned. They didn't do the unpacking, and this is the generation. What I've been finding is that we are willing to do this hard work, and it is a heavy lift to do like these generational changes in families and in the way we see ourselves and the way we communicate and in our community. It's a heavy lift. So one of the things that I had to start saying to myself is, I was enough. So that version of myself was enough. I am enough. The person that I am right now is enough. And that person in the future will also be enough. Right? So I was enough. I am enough. People that may not have made me feel that way also probably didn't feel that way about themselves. And so it's being passed down, not like the best gift, y'all. Passed down, like my father passed down these freckles. I'm cool with that. That's a passed down thing. But there are other things that I could do without. I could do without that. The trauma, being passed down. No, thank you. No, thank you. You can leave that where it was. But again, people aren't unpacking. The other thing is distance and wisdom can allow me to apply grace to a lot of these things. So distance from the situation, because some of these instances are in my past, and wisdom, God telling me, hey, this is why this person showed up like this. That has allowed for me to apply grace to situations that I didn't always. Um, and that is important. That has been very helpful for me as I've healed, because I think sometimes when people have done us wrong, we want to tell them about their whole selves. Let me tell you about you real quick. But again, what is that? What difference does that make? And I'm not saying you shouldn't. If God tells you to do that, then do that too. Also, I think we have to move past the idea that we need to be fixed, right? Something about us has to be fixed to be worthy. That's not the case. God doesn't tell us that. So why do we let man tell us that? Once we give God our all, we tell him, God, I'm going to be saved. This is my life. Sorry for all my sins, right? He doesn't then make us like run a marathon to then say we have worth or that we're worthy. As a matter of fact, he calls people that if we were to look at it, we see them as unworthy. So what then happens is we adopt the same mentality that, other people do, which is, oh, I must not be worthy. Because if we look at the Bible and we're going to say, okay, Paul was not worthy in our eyes, but God validated him and saw him as worthy, which means God can validate us and make us worthy. That also does not mean people will agree with God, because people are judgmental, right? So they're going to be people that want to keep you in a space of, oh, this person's hasn't changed enough in their eyes. You haven't done enough. You haven't moved around enough in their eyes, right? So you have to make sure that you're not adopting that as truth. It's their mentality, but it doesn't make it true. Because if God didn't say it's true, it is not true. If God says you are redeemed, then you are redeemed. So stop letting people put labels on you that don't belong to you. All right. So many of us feel we now have to do the most to earn people's approval. Again, remember that transactional thing that I said that I used to live by? So let me ask you, how much would you charge for your attention if that was the case? What does it cost? How much does your affection cost? Like, these are real things you have to start thinking about, because if people are going to attach a cost to everything you do, or say you have to earn something, well, it would be almost an interesting thing to ask them, okay, so you don't think that I deserve X, Y, and Z. How much would it cost for your apology? How much would it cost for your attention or your affection? How much would that cost? Right? All right. And then the last one is welcoming the future you. And I have no idea what time it is. It's probably already late. Okay, I'm doing well. Y'all, it's not a shame I couldn't even see the time from here. I'm like, what time is it? Y'all, don't be laughing. I need my glasses, but I can't read with them. It's a whole thing. And I don't want bifocals. So don't even try to come at me with the bifocals thing. I'm not doing it. All right. So coming back, welcoming the future you. This is an important part, because that's, I'm obviously living in the present, but what I'm doing is trying to set myself up for, how does Stacy show up for her best self? How does she move forward? How does she impact change? Because that's important for me. So what's one small thing that your present self is proud of today is something I want you to think about. What is one of the things you're proud of today? I'm proud that I'm still doing this sipping tea with Stacy T. Y'all, I've started a lot of things and not stopped them. I've started a lot of things. I've started a lot of things and stopped them. I haven't completed them. There's been any manner of things that has, and not necessarily bad things, but life happens, lives, right? And so there's a lot of times where I have good intentions. I'm going to start this, I'm going to do this, and I start it, but then I just don't finish it. So for me, I take joy in the fact that, y'all, I started this in February and I have not stopped. That is a huge a success for me. And I will say, I think a lot of the times it's because of I've absorbed what people have seen me as, and what they've thought of me, and what people have always said about me, and how people have treated me. And I let that be the guiding force about how I saw myself. And I'm in a space now that I'm really trying to figure out who I am. Not in terms of like what my capabilities are, but like, who is Stacy in the grand scheme of purpose? Like, in the grand scheme of purpose, who is Stacy? What are the things that she's going to allow for people to say that she is, as opposed to who she is? What am I going to allow for people to say that my heart is, as opposed to how I've shown up for people, right? If I've constantly shown up for you, if I've constantly done the things for you, then you should already know what my heart is. So how you should address me is knowing what my heart is, as opposed to potentially, me having a bad day, or me being tired, or me like, having a moment. But we don't always do that. And I'm not saying I do that all the time either, but I'm just saying, like, that's the mentality that I'm moving toward, or trying to move toward, because it is tricky. It's not easy always. But that's why it's the future me, y'all, because I ain't there yet. I'm not there yet. So welcoming the future you. The future you is being built from your present. That's important because it's not being built from your past. Why is that the case? Because you're working on your past traumas in your present. So the intention is to have handled those past traumas in the now so that the future Stacy does not still lean on those things. It doesn't mean I don't discuss those things because I'm trying to help people get out from some of their past trauma, the trauma that they're willing to face, the trauma that they can remember, because again, your brain can suppress memory to protect itself. But I'm trying to lean into that who was that version of yourself that showed up broken, that version of yourself that might have been abused, misused, all that. Tuck that version into the present. Address those things in this space. But in the future version of us, the hope is that we have identified all of those traumas. We're aware of the trauma, and we're having God help us process triggers. One thing I will say is, a lot of times people will say, I don't like people. I don't want to be around people. And I may or may have not said that many times. What I'm going to tell you is that the only way for you to really spell out if you are healing is to do it in community. Because, if you're just to yourself, then everything is fine. It's when you add people to the equation that it becomes tricky, right? Because then you're getting the people giving you judgment. Then you're having people that are always reminding you of the person that you were as opposed to the person you're trying to become. Then you have people that are judging you because you made a couple of bad decisions back in the day, and they're trying to, give you a cloak of shame, like you're supposed to wear the, scarlet letter for the rest of your life because you made a bad choice. But that's the nature of people. And when people are hurt, they seek to hurt you. They don't seek to heal you. They don't seek to show compassion. And if you haven't dealt with, some of your past stuff, it's easier for that to spill over into your future. So the future you is being built from your present grace, not your past guilt. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. The future you is being built from your present grace and not your past guilt. Building on past mistakes, compartmentalized trauma is building on a foundation that is unstable. Why that is important is this. All of us are trying to build a life that we are happy in. We're all trying to build in a space where we feel whole and that the foundation has something that we can build upon. If you're building everything about your future on a foundation of your past, not the healed present, right? But that guilty, shameful, painful past, and you haven't done any of that work, then you're still on that shaky foundation. So anything you build on it is kind of like when they say you build on sand. We're not trying to build on sand. We're trying to build on a firm foundation. So that's why it's important to do this work. Allowing God to tear up the concrete slab and repair me, or spackle where he needed to be. Because sometimes it's a spackle job, right? There's like a tiny little thing going on, and God's like, okay, let's just take this out, buff it a little bit, spackle, right? Sometimes he had to take out the whole slab, y'all. I needed a whole brand new concrete slab because some of the stuff was a lot. But again, because you're doing that with God, he'll determine that. He'll determine what level of work that has to be done. Because what he wants to do is build a lasting foundation, not like a shaky one, a lasting foundation. The other thing I want you to do is this, as I start to close, is visualize the healed version of yourself, right? The version of yourself that you believe you're going to become, the version of yourself that you're working towards being. So I want you to think in these terms. What do you believe? What do you need to believe right now? That you are deserving of fulfilling love that you will experience. You are deserving of fulfilling love that you will experience. I didn't say that you may, I said that you will experience, right? That you will have a healing impact on people around the world. Now, these are ones I made specifically for myself, but I do believe that these are things that everybody can attribute. That abundance and not lack is your portion. Abundance and not lack is your portion, which means you should be the lender and not the borrower, right? Above and not beneath. This is not like me making up stuff. This is scriptural, y'all. I just put it in some different words. That you are enough and only too much for people who feel, see, and think small, or people that are lazy with their effort. So I'm going to read that one again. You are enough. You that are listening, you are enough, and you are only too much for people who feel, people who see, and people who think small. That's when you're too much. Oh, you're just too much. For those people that think, feel, and see small, you are. But for the people who have capacity and are growing, then you are just enough. You are just enough. And if the people are lazy with their efforts, then yes, you're also too small for them. I mean, too much for them. So in closing, what I want to leave you with, healing does mean integrating. It does not mean erasing. So as you're healing, it's not that you're forgetting your past. That's not the case. You're integrating those experiences, but you're doing it through a healed lens, right? You're healing. So every version of you, the hurt, the healing, and the hopeful, all three of them, they are all a part of your wholeness. So when you're thinking about, being grateful for every part of you, what you're doing is you're saying, that's the whole person that Stacy is. I've been hurt 100%. I am healing. Absolutely. But I'm also hopeful, right? So all of those things make up the whole version of who I am. They're all a part of your wholeness, and you are allowed to evolve and still be proud of the steps. So you're able to still be proud of those steps, those things that you're working on. You're still evolving, but I also need for you to be clear that not everybody, as I said before, not everybody's going to support your healing journey. Not everybody's going to get it, but keep healing, because it's about you and God and having Him work on that other stuff. Just keep focused on Him, and He's going to do the rest. He's going to do the rest. All right. With that, look at that. I can see y'all better now. With that, I just want to say thank you. Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. That's so sweet. All right. So, y'all, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, because even though I have to say, it's been few in number on the lives, I've had people that have watched it later and come to me and talk about it. But I want you to know that you guys have been a part of this journey for me. You guys have not just been here clicking in, typing in, sitting around. All the work that you have done to be here, to take the time, has not been for nothing. I'm hoping it blesses you, but if it hasn't, kicked in to drive for you yet, I do want you to know that it 100% blesses me to know that I can count on faces in here. But I would also still do it if there was nobody here. Let me be clear, because I'm trying to be obedient. And so, yeah, that's important. That's important. But thank you. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and extend to yourself. And please, to your girl, a measure of grace. I'll see you on the next episode of Sipping Tea with Stacy T. And again, if you also have any topics you want me to cover, I do have a lot of topics, but if there's something that you want me to address, please do hit me up at sippingteawithstacyt@gmail.com. All right. Have a great week, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving. Bye, y'all.